Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. And this is the story of the day: a simple cardboard box dropped like a bomb. Not just on her desk, but on everything she thought she had hidden. It didn't explode. It didn't tick. It didn't even rattle. It just sat there, taped shut, corner dented, with her name printed across the top in thick black letters. Bryn Halpern. No sender name. No logo. No warning. Just a single label and the weight of everything I couldn't say. I wasn't there when it was delivered, but I've played the footage more times than I care to admit. Her office has a security camera right above the reception desk, one of those wide-angle types that catches everything. And lucky me, I knew exactly who to bribe to get a copy. At 10:36 a.m., the delivery guy walks in, bored, chewing gum, carrying nothing but that one box. At 10:37, the receptionist calls up to HR. "Bryn, there's something down here for you." At 10:41, she steps off the elevator in heels I bought her last Christmas, wearing a smile I haven't seen in months. By 10:43, she's opening the box. And by 10:45, she's staring at what's inside like it just reached up and slapped her across the face. She doesn't cry. She doesn't scream. She just stops, like someone hit pause on her entire system. Her coworker leans over and glances inside. Then another. Then another. Her world doesn't implode all at once. It peels apart, layer by layer. Every lie she told me back home now unraveling in front of colleagues who once thought she was a polished, put-together woman with a quiet husband and a simple life. But let me rewind. Just 48 hours earlier, that box was in my garage. I packed it myself. Each item inside was carefully chosen, not out of pettiness, but precision. A printed map of the hotel where they'd met, with dates circled in red. A copy of the room service bill, signed in her unmistakable loopy cursive. A small black dress I hadn't seen in our closet since February. And the kicker, a framed screenshot of his message to her, printed 8 by 10, in full color, under glass. "He's so dull, Bryn. You deserve real weekends. Real fun. Not a life that feels like oatmeal." She once told me oatmeal reminded her of her childhood. Safe. Warm. Steady. I guess that wasn't enough anymore. I didn't include a note. I didn't need to. She'd know who it came from the second she saw the last thing in the box. A torn page from our wedding vows. The part that said, "No matter how far we drift, I promise to always find my way back to you." But she didn't drift. She ran. And I just stopped following. You might be wondering how I got here. How a guy like me, quiet, careful, the kind who still sets her coffee to brew at 7:15 even when I sleep alone, could end up orchestrating a moment like that. But I'm not the villain in this story. I'm the one who sat silent too long, believing love would fix itself. I was wrong. And if you think the box was the end, oh no, it was just the warning shot. She didn't call me that day, not even a text. That's what shocked me most. Not the delivery itself, or the way I imagined her co-workers whispering behind her back, or even the look I had etched in my head from that grainy security footage. No, it was the silence afterward. Like she'd vanished into a vacuum of her own undoing and didn't have the words to crawl back out. And I waited. I spent that evening pacing between rooms like a man without a home. The living room light flicked on, off, on again. I didn't even remember touching the switch. I kept checking my phone every 10 minutes, not even realizing I was doing it. Just some pathetic twitch of hope. Like maybe she'd write something dumb and simple. "We need to talk." Or even, "Why would you do that?" But there was nothing. Just that little read receipt on our last message, where I'd asked, "Do you want me to pick up oat milk?" She read it. She just didn't answer. By 10 p.m., I knew she wouldn't be coming home that night. I knew. And yet I still left the porch light on like some sad imitation of faith. There was this quiet hope. Not even hope. Just inertia. That maybe this was all a dream. That maybe I'd wake up and she'd be in the kitchen, asking where I left the cinnamon, because she wanted to try a new cookie recipe she saw on Pinterest. But the kitchen stayed dark, and the porch light burned alone. Around midnight, I sat down with a mug of cold tea and opened my laptop. I didn't plan to write anything. It just happened. I opened a blank document and stared at it. Then I typed the first word. Why? Just that. No punctuation. Just the hollow breath of a man trying to make sense of something senseless. I thought I knew her. I really did. I knew how she took her coffee. I knew the 3 freckles behind her left ear that she always covered with concealer. I knew the way her voice tightened just a little when she lied. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I'd lived in that sound for a decade. So when did it all slip? When did she stop being Bryn and start being whoever she was with him? I had no idea who he was. I still didn't. I only knew fragments, initials from a gift tag, a blurry reflection in her sunglasses from an Instagram story she forgot to delete in time. But I felt him, the presence of him, the shadow she brought home when she thought I was asleep, the way she showered right after walking in the door on Thursdays, the way she locked her phone screen faster than a teenager hiding a secret. I wasn't a fool. I just didn't want to be right. The next morning, still no sign of her. Not in bed, not in the kitchen, not on her side of the sink. I checked her location. Turned off. Classic move. I called her phone. Straight to voicemail. Then, around 9:30 a.m., I got a call from an unknown number. My heart leapt. Not because I wanted it to be her, but because I thought maybe this was the part where I finally got answers. But it wasn't her. It was her boss. "I'm not sure if you're aware," she said, in that HR-polished voice, "but there was an incident at the office yesterday. Bryn had to be escorted out after becoming visibly distressed." She hesitated. "She said you sent her something?" I didn't know what to say. I hadn't expected that. Escorted out? She hadn't just cried. She'd broken. Whatever mask she'd been wearing cracked right there on the 4th floor of that clean, modern building, and the truth bled out in front of everyone. I imagined the scene. Her trying to explain it, trying to gather her things with shaking hands, co-workers looking away out of politeness, or shame, or morbid curiosity. And for a second, just one awful second, I felt bad. But then I remembered the messages. I remembered the lipstick that didn't match any in our bathroom drawer. I remembered the smell of cologne on her coat. And whatever guilt I felt, it faded into something else. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just resignation. Like I'd accepted that I was never the man in her story, just a bookmark she forgot to remove when she started reading a different chapter. That evening, she finally came home. But she didn't say a word. Not even when she walked through the door. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. Or maybe she was scared of what I knew, or how much further I was willing to go. Her eyes were rimmed red. Her hair a mess. She dropped her purse on the floor like it weighed 1,000 pounds, then went straight upstairs and locked the bedroom door. I didn't knock. I didn't shout. I just sat on the bottom step and stared up the staircase like a man staring into a collapsed roof. She didn't sleep in our bed that night. Neither did I, because something had been delivered back to me too, not in a box, but in silence. And what came next? Well, not even I was ready for that. The next morning started like a scene from someone else's life. I woke up on the living room couch, half covered by a blanket that I didn't remember pulling over myself. The TV was still on, flashing muted commercials into the darkroom. My phone buzzed beside me. Not a call, not a message from her, but a push notification reminding me I'd skipped my usual Tuesday grocery run. As if oat milk and bananas mattered now. I sat up slowly, my back stiff from the awful cushions, and listened. Silence. No footsteps above. No shower running. No sound of her making her weirdly loud green smoothies. I stood, stretched, walked upstairs, and saw the bedroom door was still shut tight. I didn't knock. I just stood there and waited for what, I didn't know. Maybe for the doorknob to turn. For her to peek out, looking guilty. For her to say, "Can we talk?" Instead, my phone rang. But again, not her. It was Ava. Now, Ava is one of those people who can burn you without raising her voice. She's Bryn's co-worker, the kind who always dresses sharp, never misses deadlines, and knows everyone's secrets by Friday. I'd only met her twice, but I remembered her instantly. Sharp eyes. Smile like she already knew your password. She didn't even say hello when I picked up. "Ellery," she said, her voice clipped and precise. "I just want you to know, I didn't know about them. I didn't know until yesterday." I blinked. Bryn and Drew. I paused. The name meant nothing. For a second, I honestly thought she had the wrong guy. "Drew who?" "Drew Lawson," she said, like it should have been obvious. "He's in sales. He's married, Ellery. Married with 2 kids. My stomach clenched, like someone had reached down my throat and twisted everything I thought I knew into something foreign. Drew. Married. Kids. And yet somehow still had room to ruin someone else's life. She said it was over. Ava continued. That it ended weeks ago? But honestly, she didn't seem convincing. And the way he acted when the box came. Ellery. He left the office 30 minutes after she did. No explanation. No email. Just vanished. I didn't respond. My brain was trying to process too much at once. I imagined this faceless man, Drew, packing up his laptop with shaking hands, calling his wife from the car, trying to spin a story fast enough to outrun the truth that was clearly catching up to him. And Bryn, what did she say to him? Did she warn him? Did she beg him to fix it? I hung up politely, then sat on the bottom step again. I realized that was my spot now. That one squeaky stair in the middle of the staircase, where everything above and below felt unreachable. And then I heard her. She was on the phone. Upstairs. Door still shut. Voice low, but not low enough. "No, I'm not mad at you," she said, her tone brittle and defensive. "It's him. He went through my things. He humiliated me. At work, no less." I stopped breathing. She wasn't sorry. She was angry. At me. "I don't know how he got the hotel info," she went on. "Maybe he followed me. Maybe he had someone watching. I don't know, but this is bad. I'm going to lose everything if this leaks." That was the moment something inside me turned cold. She didn't care that she had betrayed me. She didn't care that she'd erased our years together with hotel sheets and whispered lies. She cared that I made her look bad, that her mask cracked in front of people who mattered more to her than I did. I stepped back, careful not to let the stair creak, and walked down to the kitchen like a ghost in my own home. My hands were shaking again. This time, not from heartbreak, from rage. I opened the fridge and stared blankly at the leftovers. I didn't know what I was even looking for. I wasn't hungry. I was hollow. And in that emptiness, a thought crept in, dark and quiet. What else was she hiding? I'd uncovered one affair. But what if it wasn't the only one? What if this was just the one she got sloppy with? What if this wasn't the beginning, but the middle? I walked back upstairs, paused in front of our bedroom, and placed my hand on the doorknob. Still locked. I could hear her voice still. Soft. Calculating. Apologizing to someone who wasn't me. And I realized something that nearly broke me. She didn't miss me. Not even a little. And when I finally confronted her, she was going to lie. I needed more than what I had. I needed everything. Because the next move I made, it would either end our marriage or expose her world to people she really didn't want watching. And I wasn't bluffing. Not anymore. I hadn't planned on going through her things. Not really. It started as something passive, something just to feel like I wasn't completely losing my grip on reality. But when someone burns down the version of your life you thought was real, you start searching through the ashes, hoping there's something left to prove you weren't insane. It was around 2 a.m. when I finally opened the hallway closet. It's the one next to the guest bathroom, stuffed full of winter coats, spare pillows, the box of old chargers no one ever throws out. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Maybe just a reason not to lie awake in bed, picturing her voice on the phone with him again, soft and kind in ways she hadn't been with me in months. That's when I saw it. The pale pink phone case wedged between an old pair of boots and a broken humidifier. It was her old phone. The one she'd told me was dead. She said it wouldn't hold a charge anymore and upgraded back in April. I remember because she asked if she could use our emergency fund to help cover the difference. I said yes without blinking. I pulled it out, half expecting it to be bricked. But when I plugged it in, just out of curiosity, just to see if anything would happen, the screen flickered on. And it asked for her passcode. Now, here's where I should have stopped. This was the final moral line, right? You don't go poking around in someone else's device, no matter how badly they've hurt you. But let me tell you something. Once you find a crack in your reality, you either tape it shut and pretend it never happened, or you pry it open and crawl through. I chose the latter. I tried her old birthday. Nothing. I tried our anniversary. Still nothing. Then, I tried the date of her mother's death. The one day she always marked with silence and a glass of wine. And just like that, the screen unlocked. The home screen wallpaper? Not a photo of us. Not a picture of her dog. Just a black background with a quote. Some people stay broken just to keep others whole. I stared at it for a long time. It felt like a confession. Or maybe a justification. I didn't know. What I did know was that the Messages app had over 300 unread texts, and they weren't from me. There were names I didn't recognize. Numbers without names. Conversations that stretched back months. Long, winding threads of emojis, blurry photos, and language that didn't belong to the woman I thought I married. She joked. She flirted. She sent playlists and heart emojis and videos. Nothing explicit, no, but emotionally, it was worse. It was intimate, and none of it included me. There was one name that stood out more than the rest. Harvey. Not Drew. Not the guy I'd just learned about from her coworker. No, this was someone else entirely. Different area code. Older messages. It looked like he had been first. I read through everything with shaking hands. My face burned. My ears rang. At one point I think I laughed, not out of humor, but pure disbelief. In one message, she told Harvey, "He's a good man, just not for me. I feel like I'm playing house with a little brother who never grew up." That line broke me. I wasn't just being replaced, I was being rewritten. She had turned me into a caricature. Some bumbling, pitiful background character in her messy, passionate story. And the worst part? She let me love her anyway. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, intentional. I sat on the floor of that closet until my legs went numb, the screen still glowing in my hands. Somewhere upstairs, she was probably asleep in our bed, dreaming whatever dreams people dream when they've completely severed the cord of loyalty and left the other end dangling around someone else's neck. I didn't wake her. Instead, I took the phone into the garage and locked it in the small safe I keep for important papers. Birth certificates, tax documents, now evidence. Because I wasn't going to confront her in a yelling match. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't even going to cry in front of her again. I was going to show her what it felt like to live in uncertainty, to question reality, to feel like a ghost walking through the life you helped build. The next step? I had to meet Harvey, and I knew exactly how to find him. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I lay there on the living room couch with my eyes wide open, the weight of the unlocked phone still in my chest like I'd swallowed a brick. There's something profoundly disturbing about reading messages that were never meant for your eyes. Messages about you, from someone who used to call you the love of their life, written to a man who never once existed in your world. Harvey. His name looped in my mind like a broken record. Who was he? How long had she known him? Was he some coworker I'd met once and forgotten? Or worse, was he a stranger she let get close while I was stupidly making dinner downstairs, thinking I was being a good husband? My thoughts spun themselves into knots, and by sunrise, I had only one thing left inside me, the need to know. I started with his phone number. It was saved in the messages, and a quick reverse lookup told me what I feared. It was a personal number, not a business line. The results gave me a name, Harvey Tollison, 52, divorced, used to live 2 towns over, now in a condo downtown. No kids. Real estate agent. It was such a normal profile that I almost felt sick. I think I had expected someone grotesque. Some sleazy, obvious caricature of a homewrecker. But Harvey looked regular. Polished. Probably someone who holds the door open for old ladies and tips well. That somehow made it worse. I stared at his social media profile for a long time. There was a photo of him at a farmer's market, holding a coffee and smiling in front of a chalkboard sign that read "Fresh Peaches 3 for $5." Another showed him on a hike with his golden retriever. And nestled between those, a picture from 6 months ago, Bryn, sitting at a cafe table, laughing. My wife, in his photo, tagged only with a peach emoji. No name, no location, no context, just a slice of life that wasn't mine to see. She had told me she was visiting her cousin that weekend. I swallowed the acid building in my throat and sat back in my chair. The walls of my house felt like they were closing in. I imagined her in that moment, laughing, carefree, untouched by consequence. She never suspected I'd know, never thought I'd look this deep. And the more I saw, the more I realized something haunting. She had never planned to tell me. Ever. She would have kept this going. Months more. Years, maybe. Until I was some silent roommate, cooking meals for a woman who was already long gone. By 10 a.m., I was parked across the street from Harvey's condo building. I hadn't planned to be. I didn't even remember getting dressed. But somehow I ended up there, sitting in my car with my hands clenched on the steering wheel, heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. What was I doing? I didn't have a plan. I wasn't going to fight him, or confront him, or scream. I just wanted to see him. Look at him. Put a face to the fracture in my marriage. At 10:34, the front door opened, and there he was, tall, clean-shaven, silver hair, button-down shirt tucked into jeans like someone who gave a damn about appearances. He was walking his dog, leash in one hand, coffee thermos in the other. I studied him, noticed how relaxed he looked. Peaceful, like a man with nothing to hide. And that's what made me snap. I stepped out of the car. I didn't think. I didn't pause. I just walked up to him, heart in my throat, adrenaline burning through my limbs like fire. He looked up, surprised, his brows pulling together. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm, and failing miserably. He looked me over, clearly confused. "Can I help you? You're Harvey Tollison, right?" "Yeah, do I know you?" I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile you wear when your whole world's been shattered and someone's holding the last piece. "I think you know my wife, Bryn." He froze. There's a silence that falls between two people when one of them knows exactly what the other's talking about, but hopes, somehow, to lie their way out of it. He didn't try. His face didn't twist into denial. He just exhaled slowly and looked away. "I didn't know she was married at first," he said quietly. "She told you." "Eventually." I nodded, lips pressed tight, trying to hold down everything boiling inside me. "And that didn't matter to you?" He didn't answer, just gave a slow shrug. "She said it was over." It wasn't. And there it was. All the air between us thick with things we weren't saying. All the apologies that wouldn't change a damn thing. I didn't swing. I didn't yell. I just stood there with a weight I couldn't drop. "Do you love her?" I asked, and instantly hated myself for asking. He looked at me, and to his credit, or maybe to his cruelty, he didn't lie. "I don't know," he said. "I think I love the version of her she gave me." I turned and walked away without another word. By the time I got home, Bryn was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine in the middle of the day like it was just another Thursday. She looked at me with hollow eyes, not angry, not sorry, just empty. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel sad. I felt done, but not finished. Not yet. The day after I met Harvey, something shifted in me. I didn't feel stronger, exactly. I wasn't empowered. I didn't throw her things into a suitcase or shout or demand some teary explanation. I didn't do anything dramatic. No, the change was quieter than that. It was subtle, like the moment a fever breaks. You're still sick, but now you know you're sick, and that knowing changes everything. For the first time in months, maybe years, I saw Bryn clearly. Not as the woman I married, not even as the woman who betrayed me, but as a stranger I had been living beside while calling it love. She didn't ask where I had gone that morning. She didn't ask why I walked past her in the hallway like she wasn't even there. Instead, she just sat in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone with that same disconnected glaze in her eyes. I watched her for a long moment from the doorway. She looked like someone trying to remember how to be human. She looked tired, but not sorry. She finally broke the silence that had been choking our house for days. "I guess you found out everything, huh?" I didn't answer. She didn't deserve an answer. "I'm not proud of what I did," she added, as if the words alone absolved her. "But I didn't think you'd retaliate." Retaliate. That's the word she chose. Not hurt. Not respond. She said it like I'd committed a crime. Like my silence, my distance, my refusal to play the helpless fool was the real betrayal. That word kept echoing in my head long after she'd gone back upstairs. Retaliate. As if she believed she was the victim in a story where I had simply been too small to matter. But I did matter. And she was about to remember that. I opened my laptop later that night, sat at the kitchen table, and logged into the shared email account we hadn't used in years, the one we made together to plan our wedding, to coordinate venue bookings and caterers and song lists and guest counts. She probably thought I'd forgotten the password. She probably assumed it was dead. But it wasn't. And inside it, dozens of messages, receipts, confirmations, conversations with hotel managers, calendars marked with vague, work trip labels. Everything she thought she had buried was still right there, waiting for me like a time capsule of deception. And that's when I found it. One message, one thread, one name that changed everything. Danielle. Danielle wasn't a stranger. She was my cousin. The cousin who introduced us. The cousin who once joked that Bryn was too hot for me and that I should keep her on a leash. The cousin who, 6 years ago, got drunk at Thanksgiving and whispered in my ear that Bryn had a wild streak I didn't know how to handle. And here she was, not just in the loop, but in the game. Her emails to Bryn were filled with coded language, dates, winks disguised as emojis, and confirmations of a spare key. My stomach turned as I pieced it together. Bryn had been using Danielle's apartment to meet Harvey. My cousin had been helping her cheat on me, actively, willingly, like they were part of some sick, shared secret I had no right to know. It wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestration. And something inside me snapped. Not into anger. Not into vengeance. Into precision. I spent the next 2 days gathering everything. Quietly, calmly, deliberately. Screenshots. Records. I called our joint financial advisor and froze movement on certain accounts. I met with a lawyer. I had never even considered divorce before. Not once. But now I was memorizing state laws about marital misconduct and spousal abandonment. I didn't sleep, didn't eat much. I just planned. Then, on a Sunday morning, I asked her if she wanted to go to brunch. She blinked, confused. What? Brunch, I repeated. The place on Maple Street you like. With the grapefruit mimosas. She stared at me for a moment, like she was trying to figure out if this was a trap. Then she nodded. Yeah, okay. And just like that, she dressed like nothing had happened. Like we were still us. She curled her hair, put on lipstick, wore the necklace I bought her for our 7th anniversary. It was almost impressive how easy it was for her to slide back into the role. We ate. We talked. I smiled through every bite. She even laughed, full on, like the woman I remembered. If any strangers had seen us, they would have assumed we were a normal, happy couple sharing a peaceful Sunday. But I had already written the final chapter, and I knew exactly how it would end. Because when we got home, she walked into the kitchen and saw something waiting for her on the counter. A box, taped shut. No note. Just her name written across the top, in her own handwriting. She froze. And when she opened it, everything she'd tried to hide came spilling out in front of her. Printouts. Photos. The message from Harvey. The email from Danielle. A copy of the lease on her secret apartment visits. Every piece placed carefully inside, stacked like the wreckage of a marriage someone else thought would never be examined. And at the bottom, a single envelope. Inside was the signed divorce petition. She turned toward me slowly, her face pale. You're really doing this? And I said nothing, because I was already done talking. The moment her eyes hit the bottom of the box, something in her cracked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the smallest shift, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't watching closely. Her fingers hesitated at the edge of the envelope. Her chest rose once, twice, and then she let out a breath like she'd just been gut-punched. For once, Bryn, the curated, polished, emotionally elusive Bryn, looked like she had no script. She stood there, gripping the papers like they might burn through her skin, as if disbelief alone could rewind the past 3 minutes. This is insane, she finally said. Her voice was hoarse, uneven, like she didn't trust it to carry. You actually went and, what, spied on me? Dug through my life like some obsessed ex-husband? I didn't respond. I just watched her. She kept going. Do you even hear yourself? A divorce? Over what? A few mistakes? You think this makes you some kind of hero? That's when I laughed. Not hard. Just a dry, pathetic chuckle that escaped before I could stop it. A few mistakes, I repeated. You had a key to Danielle's apartment, Bryn. You scheduled your affairs like business lunches. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't yelling. That's what made it worse, for her. I wasn't angry anymore. I was resolved. And that's what she couldn't stand. You think you're innocent? She snapped, stepping closer. You think you didn't play a part in this? You made me feel invisible. You were so busy being soft and supportive and boring that I forgot what it felt like to be wanted. Harvey saw me. Drew saw me. You just floated through this marriage like a ghost in an apron. That hurt, but it didn't break me, because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about the version of me she needed me to be, not so she could love me better, but so she could justify loving me less. I tilted my head and asked the one question I'd been saving for this exact moment. So how long until you bring Harvey home for dinner? Her expression shattered. Shattered. Like every lie she'd layered around herself had suddenly been stripped bare, and all that was left was panic. She looked like she was about to cry, but not because she was sorry. Because she was exposed. You don't get it, she whispered. You're not the only one with something to lose here. Oh, I know, I said. That's why I sent copies. She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Copies to who? To whom? I corrected calmly. And don't worry. Just a few people. HR at your office. Harvey's firm. His wife, of course. Lovely woman, by the way. And Danielle's landlord. Apparently, the key-sharing thing violates her lease. Bryn's hands trembled. You think this makes you powerful? No, I said, stepping past her toward the staircase. It makes me free. She followed me up the stairs, still shouting, but her words were scrambling now, dissolving into panicked half-threats and shaky apologies. I let her talk. Let her drown in the sound of her own chaos while I calmly entered the bedroom, opened the suitcase I'd packed the night before, and zipped it shut. "You're leaving?" she asked, like she hadn't just destroyed the foundation of everything we built. "I already left," I said, lifting the bag. "This is just logistics." She stood in the doorway, hair falling around her face, the remnants of a life she tried to sculpt to her liking collapsing around her shoulders. She looked tired, older, smaller, not the untouchable woman who once held my heart in the palm of her hand. Just a person, broken, flawed, and cornered by the mess she thought she could outrun. I walked past her, down the stairs, out the door, and into a different version of the world. One where I didn't have to beg to be loved, or guess if I mattered, or fight for scraps of truth from someone who had weaponized my silence against me. I didn't look back. Not once. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I noticed something strange. The porch light was still on. I hadn't turned it off, but she hadn't either. It flickered softly behind me, casting pale gold across the empty steps, like the ghost of the marriage we'd both abandoned long before the papers were signed. It's been 6 weeks since I walked out of that house. 6 long, quiet, beautiful weeks. At first, it felt like drifting, like I'd lost gravity and nothing would ever anchor again. My world had been so tightly spun around her for so long that walking away felt like walking into a fog I didn't know how to navigate. There were nights I didn't sleep, mornings I woke up reaching for a presence that wasn't there. Not because I missed her exactly, but because I missed the illusion. The one I built. The one I kept feeding, even when it stopped giving anything back. But here's the part one didn't expect. I found peace. Not overnight. Not in some grand, healing moment. It came in little ways. The silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt calm. I stopped checking my phone for apologies that would never come. I deleted the screenshots. I threw away the envelope. I started cooking again, not for someone else, but for me. I even started jogging, which is saying a lot for someone who used to get winded walking to the mailbox. I got an apartment near the river. It's small, quiet, nothing fancy. But I chose every piece of furniture, every plate, every curtain. For the first time in years, nothing reminds me of her. And it feels clean. Bryn signed the divorce papers 2 days after I left. No note. No drama. Just a signature and a courier envelope dropped at my door like a final period on a sentence we both stopped writing long ago. I haven't spoken to her since. Danielle called once. Tried to spin some story about how she was just trying to help and didn't mean for it to go that far. I didn't answer. Some people don't deserve a final word. Harvey? Don't know. Don't care. That's between him and the woman he now gets to lie beside, knowing she once turned her entire life into a performance. But me? I'm good. Not perfect. Not healed. But better. There's a strange power in knowing you survived something designed to make you feel small. In knowing you didn't break. You woke up. I spent so long being the quiet one, the soft one, the man who stepped aside to keep the peace. But now, I found my voice again, and it doesn't tremble anymore. So yeah, she didn't know I knew. Not until the box hit her desk and cracked her world in two. But in the end, the only world I cared about rebuilding was mine. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment where the truth shattered everything, but you still came out stronger, share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. Maybe someone out there needs to know they're not alone. And if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to subscribe. More true stories are coming soon.